It's showtime, folks!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I am here talking Impact Wrestling and why Impact Wrestling will be just fine. Yes, indeed. This is not the podcast. This is a singular topic. So before we get into it, we get into a couple of notes. First, if you're a huge pro wrestling fan, Impact Wrestling fan, smash that like button for your boy. If you want to check out my channel, I'll leave the link for you down below. If you want to check out the podcast, you can check out my most recent podcast episodes. It is on my channel. And also, I've run into a pretty cool website. It's called DiscussPW.com. They discuss pro wrestling. They like to talk about Impact Wrestling again. They keep out the trolls. And it is a cool site to get your opinions across, to banter with fellow fans, fellow wrestling fans, fellow Impact Wrestling fans as well. It's a cool site, so check it out. So let's get into this. Impact Wrestling. Why it will be just fine. I'm about to talk about a couple of the two biggest departures from Impact Wrestling. So if you don't want to hear about that, then this is not the subject for you, but this news is pretty much out there. Two of the biggest departures from Impact Wrestling, EC3 and Bobby Lashley, are officially gone from Impact Wrestling. Now, I'm hearing a lot of negativity as it pertains to the entire wrestling community, internet wrestling community. A lot of negativity. Impact is done. They're losing their top wrestlers and they won't recover from this and all of this. But I'm here to tell you why Impact Wrestling will be just fine. First, let me take a stroll all the way back into 2014. The phenomenal AJ Styles. He had his final match against Magnus. Impact Wrestling, well, TNA at the time, they couldn't come to terms with AJ Styles. And AJ went on to leave to New Japan Pro Wrestling. At the time, I was hearing, you know what, that's it for Impact Wrestling. You know, they can't recover from that. And at the time, I gotta admit, seeing AJ Styles leave, it was honestly, I've been watching wrestling since the early 90s. It was honestly the toughest departure of a wrestler from a company that I've ever seen. Because, and that's no hyperbole, because AJ Styles was the Sting of TNA. He was the Undertaker of TNA. He was their guy. And it was tough to not see them come to a deal with AJ Styles. But at the same time, you know that life goes on. Life moves on, companies move on. AJ Styles left off, and who was right there to took over the mantle eventually? Bobby Lashley. And then eventually EC3 was already there, but EC3 worked his way up into becoming that guy. And I wasn't too high on EC3, but eventually worked himself up into one of the best personalities on TV today. Lashley was just one of the best wrestlers overall in all of wrestling. Nobody wanted to hear that then, but he was one of the best wrestlers in all of wrestling. One of the best world champions as well. They took the mantle, and it was some things that Impact Wrestling, you know, they wasn't perfect. They didn't do everything right, but building up new guys, they did that, and they did that with ease. Eventually, your Samoa Joes left, your Bobby Roodes left, and it was just those guys that were there to hold up Impact Wrestling. They held up Impact Wrestling just fine. And I'm hearing a lot of now with EC3 and Lashley leaving. Here goes the same old story. Impact will never recover. They lost their top two guys. They can't come back from this. Well, as I said with AJ Styles, when he left, when Bobby Roode left, when Samoa Joe left, as great as those guys are, life moves on. And out with the old, I don't want to call those guys the old, but out with the old and in with the new. Two new signees with Impact Wrestling, Brian Cage and Austin Aries. Look, these guys are phenomenal. As I mentioned in my podcast, I think that was my first episode of my podcast, shameless plug right there. But Brian Cage is one of the preeminent big men of this entire wrestling business. From a skill point, from a personality point, from a promo standpoint, the guy can do it all. And he's impressive. He can fly around with the little guys, and he can muscle around the big guys. He's very impressive. I don't know how they're going to book him in Impact Wrestling. We'll see about the storylines and what goes forth, but the guy's impressive, and he has world champion written all over him. Also, Austin Aries, we know what he brings to the table as far as Impact Wrestling goes, because the guy took off in TNA. Now remember Option C, when he cashed in on Option C, beat, I believe, Bully Ray, it was for the World Championship, and look, I was stunned when they put the belt on him. And it was just a phenomenal moment. If you go back and watch that, it was a great moment. Austin Aries won the title. He's done a lot of great things in Impact Wrestling, whether it comes from a promo standpoint or an in-ring standpoint. He was the greatest man that ever lived. He had a phenomenal persona, and I'm excited about him coming in this time around, his run this time around. I don't know what his run is going to be like, but I'm expecting great things. Look, Impact Wrestling is going to be just fine. You got your Eli Drakes of the world, and guys left and right up and down the roster on Impact Wrestling. They're going to take it over. I'm hearing now that these recent tapings were just phenomenal. Some of the best tapings in years. That's what I'm hearing. And from Don Callis and Scott D'Amore, I'm hearing that they're doing phenomenal things. So there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to Impact Wrestling. I know you have you guys like EC3 and Lashley leaving, and that seems bad, but there are phenomenal things to look forward to. How are they going to book this roster? I have complete faith in Scott D'Amore and Don Callis, so I'm excited about that. Of course, you're going to have your trolls out there that are just going to hate on Impact just to hate on Impact, and I don't really get that, because wrestling should be wrestling. You should love all of wrestling, but it is what it is. I'm excited for Impact Wrestling. I'm looking forward to these tapings. Yes, EC3 and Lashley left, but there's a lot of great things on the horizon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this subject. We have the Barbed Wire Massacre coming up tonight. I'm really looking forward to that. I'll be talking about that at some point. So I'll stay tuned on that. And the podcast is coming really soon, so stay tuned to that. And you can follow me on Twitter at o.m.g Corey B. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this subject, and I will be seeing you at some point later.